Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
What are you implying? Cindy wondered. Do I have to run to the drugstore to get a test? You can, but it's clear enough. Thomas was delighted to hear that she was pregnant. Wendy was horrified. Not only does she have to put up with a deadbeat son-in-law, but now there's gonna be a baby in the house. And she has a job from morning till night. Useless students with diplomas, papers, squabbles in the department, unfinished articles. After all, she's entitled to at least some peace. In the house, Wendy grumbled, scandalized, told her friends and colleagues what an unbearable life her children had made her, but realized that Cindy and her neputativoy husband to go nowhere. Even rent an apartment cannot rent. The furniture factory is dying, the salary is miserable. And the son-in-law, how much do not yell nothing in his sports club, will not earn. The birth of a grandson, Alex tried on the family for a while, but began endless sleepless nights, constant lack of money, and in 2 years the situation heated to the limit. Thomas at night unloaded trucks, moonlighted in a cab. He was exhausted, but the situation didn't change. Wendy kept saying that Thomas was a worthless husband who couldn't provide for his family. Better no husband than no husband at all. It became unbearable to live with Mom, and Thomas and Cindy decided to rent an apartment. They knew it would be hard, but there was no other option. No pets. So, against my own rules with the baby, I healed the floor, no Scotch tape, no tearing wallpaper, no rearranging furniture. Sorry, we have a bathtub. The screen leaks. So no companies. I got a decent reputation here. Let's sign a contract. First and last month's rent, same as the last month. We didn't count on it. Let's hurry up and sign, Cindy whispered. I'm tired of that creepy woman. Let her go already. While Thomas signed the documents, Cindy went out on the balcony. The apartment wasn't much, but the view from the balcony was impressive. Endless meadows with sparse groves. And the river in the distance, all the way to the river, would be built up with high-rise buildings. But no houses yet. Peace and quiet. The sports club where Thomas worked, sometimes the tough customers came in. Maybe they didn't have time to drive to the expensive club. Or maybe not all the rich people were after prestige. Or maybe they were just saving money. Sir, where were you a regular member of the club? He came twice a week and preferred Thomas to all the trainers. There were whispers in the club that were his 1 million earned not quite honestly, but it was at the level of rumors. No one could know for sure. Thomas, how's it going? Not so good. If it gets too bad, call me, I'll try to help you. It was about to get really bad. The sports club decided to rent out the premises. There's not enough customers to maintain the premises and pay salaries. It's too expensive for 2 coaches. Thomas and the second coach, Jacob, were out of work. Then they came up with the idea of renting a shooting range, remodeling it, and opening a children's section in addition to classes with clients. They calculated how much they needed for rent and equipment. It turned out to be decent. Jacob borrowed money from relatives. Thomas sold Cindy's car. The idea was questionable, but I didn't argue. I saw how enthusiastic Thomas was to make repairs, and change the equipment had to be done quickly so as not to lose customers. They worked day and night and were terribly busy. Often we didn't even go home. Right here to sleep for 3 hours and then go back to work. A month later we opened. Old clients came back, even a couple of new ones. But with the children's section has not yet worked out. It turned out that to work with children you need to collect a lot of documents and pass 1,000 approvals. The shooting range did not bring in any income, not even enough to pay the rent. We miscalculated. It didn't work out, but the sports club decided they could use the renovated shooting range themselves. And when Thomas and Jacob could not pay the rent, the contract with them was terminated, and they were offered to work again as coaches for a salary. Thomas didn't know what to do. He was struggling, but he couldn't earn anything. Cindy did not scold her husband. On the contrary, calmed and encouraged him. And that made it completely nauseating. Thomas was ashamed that he could not properly provide for his wife and son. Wendy is right to say he is a worthless man and a worthless husband. Cindy saw her husband trying. She thought it would all work out. It's not like they need a lot of money, just enough to pay the rent and live on. And that's enough. You should get a job. Things will be easier. It's true, they cut wages at the factory. Things are bad there. Thomas quit the sports club and took a job in construction. To hell with what he loves to do, he has to make money. But the money didn't work out again. They promised, but didn't pay. When the workers reached the boiling point, they were told there would be no money. The developer went bankrupt. Thomas sat on the bench outside the building. How he's going to tell Cindy there's no money again. And then the landlady called. You haven't paid your last month's rent? If you don't pay tomorrow, get out of the apartment. I'll pay you tomorrow. What's all this piling up? 1 to 1. He can't find any money until tomorrow. He can't even borrow it from anyone. What to do now? Again to Vera Vladimirovna to return their life will not look for a new apartment, to pay, then to find this developer bastard and shake out of him money. Out of desperation, Thomas called Where to him. He realized that one should not turn to a man with such a reputation, but there was no way out. No, he didn't ask for money. Thomas would never do that under any circumstances. I asked him to find out if I could get anything from the developer. He said he'd find out and set up a meeting in 3 hours. There's no way to get money from your charade and office. They burned out and disappeared. Of course, we can look for them and get the money out, but I realize you need the money now. I'm offering you an advance on my house. Right now, I've got a transportation company flight for a month. A truck is loaded with permits to work. It'll be here by tonight. The money's good. I agree. What the freight is none of your business. Those who work for me and do not ask unnecessary questions, so they get a lot of money. You're supposed to keep your hands off the cargo and deliver it safely. If the first trip goes well, we'll talk about a permanent job. So I'm in. Here's your advance. You leave tomorrow, you're free to go. And Thomas looked into the envelope. Wow, if it's an advance, what's the paycheck going to be? Muddy water and history. At least there's a way out. He'll go once and then we'll see. Thomas, why did you buy so much? What is this? Some kind of holiday? With what money? Cindy, I paid this month's rent and next month's. Here's the money to pay for kindergarten. I met my army buddy. He's got his own business. He hired me, paid me in advance. I've got to get the equipment to the different cities. I'm leaving tomorrow like tomorrow. For how long? Just a month, but it's very good money. Our miserable life is over. We can't go a month without you. Thomas, it's dangerous. You don't have to go. We'll earn money somehow. Money's not the most important thing. Of course not. What's important is that you're happy. I'll do anything to make you happy. No matter what happens, you'll always be happy, successful, and strong. Promise me. Thomas left. Cindy was worried and called Kelly. She asked quite natural questions. Where he went, how he got a job in one day, and where does he work? Cindy didn't know. Anxiety was building. She didn't know where her husband worked, didn't know the name of his army friend, didn't know where Thomas was now. He didn't call much. Mom was on the fence about it. Always knew your husband was a loser, and he's a scumbag, running away, abandoning her. It's scary enough as it is, and now she's bringing it up. But she's my mom. You can't tell her. Shut up. 2 weeks later, I got a call. Cindy, your husband was transporting dangerous goods. The truck lost control on the highway tonight, rolled over and burst into flames. Your husband was killed. I'm sorry for your loss. Your husband's life was insured. You'll get a payout. This is bullshit. This is a hoax. It can't be true. What payout? For what? There's been a mix-up. Thomas was carrying appliances. Cindy kept dialing her husband's number. Unavailable. Woke up Alex lying there waiting for Mom. She found everything. He got out of bed and went into the kitchen. Mom was sitting there looking strange, like she hadn't seen him. He came over, put his head on her lap. She stroked her son's head and thought, how could it be? Just now there was a husband, and now he was gone. Does it happen like that? What about us? My God, my son, how can you live without your daddy? How am I going to live? Thomas was buried in a closed casket. You can't even say goodbye. probably because she never saw her husband dead. Cindy didn't think it was real, like it was staged. Standing at the edge of the grave with her husband's portrait in her hands, she saw handfuls of earth being thrown on the coffin and couldn't believe that Thomas was there. After the funeral, Cindy couldn't cry, couldn't sleep. She didn't know what to say to Alex, who was waiting for Daddy, a longing for a life that had failed. There would be nothing more, no more love, no more happiness, only loneliness and pain. I took Alex to daycare and went to my husband's grave. Almost every day, at least for half an hour, sat, looked at the portrait, tried to tell Thomas how she lived. But it didn't work. Stupidly talking to the grave didn't make it any easier. Wendy felt guilty. Would not have clung to Thomas less reproachful, would not have gotten involved in a dark story, and would be alive. Along the line, such thoughts never crossed her mind. But Wendy ate herself to death, ruined her daughter's life. She left Cindy on her own, tried to make it up to her, suggested her daughter move in with her. Why pay rent when you can barely afford to live? Cindy refused. Yeah, it's hard, but Mom works hard, and she and Alex would get in her way. Wendy has decided that her daughter doesn't want to forgive her. It happens. The two people closest to her didn't find the right words. One said the wrong thing. The other heard the wrong thing. It turned tragic. Wendy outlived her unloved son-in-law by a year. The guilt was unbearable. Her heart couldn't take the heart attack. How could it be? Why do all the dearest and most loved ones leave after Mom's funeral? Cindy was held in this world by Alex. If the defenseless little man hadn't been there, Cindy wouldn't have survived. Not without gloating, announcing to the landlady that she was moving out. Cindy moved into Mom's apartment. Needing to go to work, back to the furniture, back to the factory. All the years of work at the factory, Cindy only did that, changing a little shape, color, adding decor, trying to turn into a cabinet almost from Soviet times. In a stylish object of modern interior did not work. The shabby cabinet did not want to become an icon of style, did not want to shine in the living rooms of rich and successful people. Kelly sometimes brought news from the fields. The factory is breathing down its neck. It's unclear how it survives. The management is ready to sell the factory, but so far there are no fools. Furniture Concern is buying up unprofitable enterprises around the country, came to them. But do they need such a good thing? It's not clear yet. Cindy, I'm sorry. I was jealous. I've been thinking about you. Why is it so unfair? You have love, a family, a child. You may not be rich, but you're happy. I'm all alone and alone. How am I any worse? You complained about your mom, and I got angry. Your mom's alive, but mine's been gone for 10 years. Suddenly, everything changed. I'm married, I'm expecting a baby. You have no husband, no mom. What if I jinxed you? I was jealous, and jinxed you. God, how am I gonna live with myself? Kelly, you're an idiot. Your grandmother wasn't a witch, but she was a third-generation witch. Jinxed. I'm a witch. I can't be jinxed. Yeah, life's cracked, but it hasn't fallen apart. I've got Alex. He'll help Kelly. Just don't leave me. I can't lose someone else right now without crying. You can't. You have to give my Alex a bride. Here's the factory, shabby chassis bent. She doesn't have time for a designer. Nothing can save her cabinets. They don't need a designer, but you can't break the law. After maternity leave, they must return to the workplace. They did. There's still a job, but there's no job, no paycheck. Instead of the legendary cabinets tried to produce kitchen tables, racks, shelves. The products were cheap. Stores did not want to take such goods. Who would buy it? They were taken mainly by cottage owners and owners of roadside hotels. Vera Vladimirovna's colleagues suggested a way out of moneylessness and idleness. Our students are all golden youth. They have money, but they don't want to study. Their fathers pay for their education, but they can't even write a term paper. We'll send them to you. Of course, it's not a thesis, but you can earn a little money. You know they don't write their own papers and you accept them. And what do you suggest, child? Kick them out and leave the institute without money. Of course, we're all in favor of teaching standards with all our hearts, but we're always hungry. Now, Cindy had a lot of monotonous, uninteresting, poorly paid work. The only consolation was that she had enough time to work. She didn't drag her work home. She spent her evenings with her son. The factory slowly emptied out. Everyone who could find another job left. It was either the most loyal or the most desperate who had nowhere else to go. Cindy, like the anecdote, couldn't decide if she was the smart one or the pretty one. On the one hand, it's clear that there's no point in staying in the factory. On the other hand, where else can you write term papers and run around on your own during working hours? Labor discipline had not been controlled by anyone for a long time. Cindy tossed between the desire to find a new interesting, most importantly, a well-paid job, and the fear of losing what at least allows you to survive. While she was choosing between the crane and the tit, suddenly there was some movement in the factory. The management, whispering for fear of jinxing it, said that the concern Mebel has made at us sends an evaluation commission to the factory. If the factory becomes a part of the concern, there will be work, new equipment, financing. The commission worked fast and hard. The director of the factory clutched at his heart, justifying himself, saying, "I know things are bad, but not everything is lost." They explained to him how bad things were. The factory should not be saved, but rebuilt. "We're not sure we want to do that. Apparently, someone decided we should." A month later, they started rebuilding and repairing the shops. Truckloads of equipment and craftsmen were brought in. Old workers were trained on its installation, new ones were recruited. A team of specialists, engineers, financiers, and lawyers, headed by the best crisis manager of the concern, came to manage the factory. The young and ambitious Jacob Payton was an extra-class specialist. With more than one enterprise, he methodically and penetratingly controlled all production, changed suppliers, was not satisfied with the quality of the material, loaded the work of constructors and designers, personally followed the installation of machines and the launch of the conveyor belt. He trusted his own specialists, just counted. He had no right to say that the factory was ready to work if he didn't know something. Handing over the factory to a new manager, he had to be sure that everything was done correctly. And if you haven't checked it yourself, you can't be sure. Finally, everything was ready. It remained to choose the best projects and start working. Cindy was preparing for the presentation. There had been so much work in the last few months that she had even abandoned her coursework for a while. This was real, interesting work, not a testament to drawing on bedding in closets. She did her projects together with Andrew, the designer, and was sure that it was their project that would go into production. May not be modest and premature, but fair. She and Lesha are the best out of competition. Cindy had not been in such a high spirits for a long time, as if she was waiting for a holiday. In recent years, there were few reasons for joy at all. No job, no money, no husband, no love. The only happiness of my son Alex, nothing else good happened in his life. Now there was hope, if not for happiness, then at least for a stable job and salary. The joyful expectations of the presentation and victory were overshadowed by one unpleasant thought. Cindy kept thinking about what she should wear. Years of moneylessness had worn out her closet. There was no time for outfits. Everything was shabby, unfashionable. There was something decent, but it was just for every day. And then there's this event. The capital's indignant bosses would show up. Cindy will look unattended and poorly dressed against them. Cindy is an intelligent woman with a good education. She's heard 100 times that looks aren't the most important thing. Even said so to someone herself. But with all the richness of her inner world, she wanted to look good. Even if she will make a sensation with her work, still meet by clothes. Who to complain to about her miserable life? Kelly, of course. That's what a friend is for, a place to come and cry. Kelly's marriage turned out to be more than just a brief fling. Arkady was a man of talent. What's a genius? He had an entrepreneurial streak. That's what he thought. Kelly had a daughter and got caught up in the baby, the household chores that could never be undone. Trying to survive on the child allowance, Kevin did not bring money to the house fountain of ideas, borrowed money, tried to start his own business every time different. but with the same result was sure that everyone owed him just for the fact that he honored the world with his presence, should give money, support his delusional ideas. In the extreme case, to give him a prestigious job. When the next idea turned out to be a failure, Arkady fell into a state of apathy. Gloomy Demon lay on the couch with hatred and squeamishness, pouring mud on those who did not appreciate his talent. Kelly also bowed it, as all his projects fell apart before they could begin. The state of gloomy dissatisfaction with the world became almost permanent. Kelly was tired of her husband's bile bouncing around, so problems abounded. She took her daughter, who was not even a year old yet, and ran away. When I was 2, I put earrings in daycare and went back to work. By then, the factory was just starting up. Kelly, what can I do? I have some money, but I have to buy him a suit for school in the fall. There's some hair dye left. You can help. Of course, it won't save him, but at least it's something. I'll come over tonight and ask for a manicure. I have a suit. I've hardly worn it. I put on a lot of weight, and it didn't fit. I'll bring it over for you to try on. The suit fit perfectly. It was so good, Cindy felt like a classy businesswoman. True, the muzzle was pumped up, dull and tired. Well, we'll fix that. The home beauty parlor is up and running. Hair dye, face mask, nail polish. I went to the cottage this weekend. I had to move some furniture for Neil the movers. And suddenly I thought, we only need men for heavy lifting now. It's sad that it's happening to you. Why so melancholy? I've never seen you in such a mood before. You used to give up on men. Where are they, men? I've noticed all around are aunts. In the store, aunts. In the hospital, aunts. On the bus, aunts. Where are the men? Well, for example, in our factory. Right. Or before 30, or after 50. Tell me, where do men spend their lives between youth and old age? Or are they kept at home from 35 to 45 by their wives, so they don't get stolen away? There are, of course, individual specimens, but it is too rare to be put in the Red Book. By the way, I've seen our chief, and I wouldn't have seen him again. He controls every project personally. He supervises everyone. Or is it just you from the beginning, Kelly? From the nurse's station to him? What are you not? I'm waiting. He won't come. Oh, come on. It's okay. It's you and me. Nothing special. He's young, handsome, smart, and rich. What's in it for you? What joy. We're from different planets. That's just it. Kelly sighed wistfully. It's a shame there's no such thing on this planet, only poop. Before the presentation, Cindy was worried sick. Why Were You Born Now will fail with a bang, and everyone will think that another mediocrity decided to take a pretty face. Her hands were shaking. Her voice was trembling. I wanted to cower in a corner and keep my head down. Let Andrew do it alone. Andrew was worried too, but he tried to cheer Cindy up. You don't faint and miss the whole triumph. We still have to accept congratulations. She pulled herself together and went to present her brilliant work. And she went and presented it. I spent the next 2 days replaying my performance in my head. I said it wrong here. I should have answered differently here. But it went great. 2 projects, Andrew and Cindy, were accepted into production. Jacob personally congratulated the author and seemed to sincerely consider their work a success. And Toporov's Kelly, he's really good. A week later, Jacob called Cindy into his office and asked her to make sure that the production did not deviate from the project by a single step. You see, Cindy, I know the specifics. It's going to start now. It's more convenient. It's cheaper. There must be no changes in materials or fittings. I want the exact model that you and Andrew designed. And you know your design thoroughly. That's why you're in control. Before, Cindy didn't know that the designer had to control the production on the fittings, on the closet, and that's it. What's on the finish line is none of her business. If she'd shut up about it not being what she'd planned and demanded a redesign, she'd be sent to the design department, had to learn a new way of working, and liked it. The money was still tight, though. Designers' salaries are small. So Cindy started doing coursework again. Now she had to work at home at night. She was tired. She didn't get enough sleep, but she couldn't give up. I had to get Alex ready for school. Jacob sometimes came to the designers, interested in ideas and developments. He liked talking to Cindy. The girl has an out-of-the-box thinking, good taste, and her own view not only on her profession, but as it seemed to him, on life. Jacob was not too interested in the personal lives of his employees, but he looked into Cindy's personal file. He knew that she was a widow and raising her son alone. "Cindy, you look tired. Let's go for a coffee." Cindy was taken aback. How to react to such an offer? It seemed sincere and without a catch, but he has no one to agree to coffee with. And what if he does not expect to agree to refuse? It must be unseemly to refuse a superior. Never had Cindy been in such a situation. Seeing the confusion on her face, Jacob smiled. "Come on, let's go talk about the new line of sofas. What difference does it make where to talk, in the office or in a cafe? I want a good coffee." The secretary brews some junk food. We drank coffee, talked about everything. Cindy told about her life very briefly, without details. Jacob turned out to be a very pleasant conversationalist and not at all scary. If he had not been the boss, Cindy would have said that she had just had coffee with a buddy. He wasn't a buddy, he was a boss. And Cindy remembered that. That's why she was a bit uptight, shy, afraid to say the wrong thing. I've had to deal with people of that stature. No experience. Kelly here would have turned around, decided right away to have coffee and invite her over. Means she's got food. She'd be making eyes at you. Cindy never thought of that. Jacob didn't give her a reason to, didn't give her a hint. They were talking about something, joking around. Suddenly, Cindy saw her late husband's Thomas in the window. He stood looking at her and then disappeared. Cindy didn't believe in mysticism, that it was Thomas. Didn't think it was, just a vision, a play of imagination. Strange, in all these years, he'd never dreamed once. And now, all of a sudden, it's a dream. Cindy wasn't even scared. Only her heart ached. Kelly came running in the evening. The whole factory's buzzing. What's with all the coffee parties with Jacob? Cindy realized there was no stopping the gossip. But she wasn't even going to confide in Kelly. There's nothing to talk about. We had coffee. Why don't you tell me who was waiting for you outside work yesterday? Kelly had wanted to tell Cindy about her affair for a long time, but the situation was awkward. It's embarrassing. Never dated my wife, but I couldn't resist. About 6 months ago, Kelly met a man. She was late for kindergarten. No bus. Angry, nervous. It must have been very noticeable because a car pulled up beside her. "You're late. Sit under the vase." He drove her to the daycare center, but he didn't leave. And when she and Irina got out, he offered her a ride home. Young, good-looking, with a prestigious job and a good salary. She started to drive to work and then home. He courted her beautifully, gave flowers and gifts. Inexpensive, but nice. He invited her to restaurants, took her on weekends to resorts and vacation homes. Kelly fell in love. He was attentive and gentle. He liked Kelly very much, you could tell. It was a real romance with feelings and passions. The lover had only one drawback, but a significant one. He was married. Kelly dreamed that he would divorce and they would be together. But when one day talked about it, he said that with his wife will not divorce, cannot. She's got some disease, she'd be lost without him. Kelly, you're not 15 years old. They all have sick wives, and they're all waiting for them to get well or die in our country. Turns out half the female population is terminally ill. No, Cindy, it's all true. I said to him, then what you're saying to me now. Then he brought me to the clinic where she's lying. He took her for a walk in the hospital park. I saw her. I don't know what she's sick or how bad it is or if it's her at all. But somehow you think he's cheating, because I don't trust married men with sick wives. I didn't think he was lying. That's not even the point. I don't want to date for years with no hope of marriage. I need a family, and he won't divorce me. Decent men don't get divorced in this situation. You're so full of shit. You hear yourself. Decent men in this situation don't get mistresses. They take care of their sick wives. Listen, why do kept women look great and decent wives look bad? Because their decent husbands spend all their money on the kept woman. It's about decent men. Okay, don't bring it up. We're already broken up anyway. We broke up yesterday. That's a shame. Yeah, Kelly. You sure know how to pick men. Unrecognized geniuses. Kevin's the dream man walking away from his sick wife. Maybe a healthy one. This morning at the bus stop, Cindy was accosted by a gypsy. At first she just looked at Cindy, then she came closer, looked long and hard. Cindy became uncomfortable. It's a burning look. I'm not asking for money. I'm not gonna guess. Just listen, thank you, I'm fine. I'm fine, you're fine. I can see I can't keep my mouth shut. The past is following you around, waiting for you. It won't give you life. Prepare yourself for a serious challenge. There's a man who won't let you go. A man close to you. Trouble will be everything, I don't know anything else. The gypsy woman turned and walked away. What past? How can the past wait? A close man ahead. Where would he come from? A tale of trial, trouble. This is crazy. What did she want? Didn't even take any money. Jacob Payton, the present director of the factory, saved more than one enterprise, and he was 40 years old and unmarried. He got married in a hurry when he was young, of course, for the love of his life. It didn't work out. The love was gone. A short married life left only negative memories, so much so that he didn't dare to marry again. And the job didn't lend itself to it. 2 years in one city, 3 in another. What woman can withstand the eternal moving and life without a home? This city and this factory are the last in the life of crisis manager Jacob Payton. He had already received an offer to become a member of the concern's board of directors. The status and salary were not as warming as the possibility of not having to travel all over the world. And finally have his own permanent home. A representative of the concern, Nick, came to the factory. Sort of an inspection. Actually, there was nothing to inspect. Payton was working. What was there to inspect? Nick decided that his friend Jacob should be warned, and it was better to do it himself. Jacob, I didn't want to take on the role of a messenger with bad news. But at least I can outline the situation, or I would have come. Hello, I'm on the board of directors. What about you, Benjamin? Benjamin was the president of the concern and the main shareholder. His word was law. He valued and respected Jacob. But the old man had one thing in common. He thought that the company should be headed by solid, serious people who would take care of the concern as if it were their own family. And a man who doesn't have a family can't feel the full extent of responsibility. He has not yet been told that Jacob is not married, but the reaction will be unambiguous, non-serious, unworthy. So you have a month to get married. Otherwise, you're just gonna keep resuscitating. All the factories where I'll take a wife in a month, even to take a closer look. No time. Jacob, you've been looking for how many years? There's someone you like, so get married. Then you look at everything. You've already looked once. Barely got away with it. I wouldn't insist, but the deadline is a month. In a month, your papers should be in the board of directors with a mark. Marry with a child and preferably a baby on the way. Not if you don't want to, but it's a shame. We really need such a specialist on the board. Moiseyevich Kremen. He won't let an unmarried man in. Jacob, I beg you, get married. Do you want me to set you up with a fake wife? Anybody else interested? No, I don't. If I were you, I'd get married right away. But you won't. What kind of desires do they represent? I'll try it myself. I'm an option. I'm not sure I'm an option for her. Cindy liked me. He wasn't planning on getting married right away, but as it happened, I'd have to try to talk her into it. I knew he'd be silly, she'd send him away, and she'd be right. He thought she was the only one he had a chance to start a family with. What makes you think that? Drinking and coffee together is no reason to get married. He had no idea how to say it, how to start the conversation. Cindy, you know me, and I know you. Let's get married. Well, that's it. It's like a quote from the movie You're Attractive. I'm damn attractive. So what's the holdup? I've been hesitant to go into the design department all morning. I've been rehearsing my speech. The secretary's speech was garbage. Larissa several times looked into the office, but the chief was such a lost face that she did not dare to ask what to ask, maybe call a doctor. What's wrong with him? Or I thought about how marrying for a career is dishonorable cheating, and talking about a sudden love affair is downright mean. But he liked Cindy, and he realized that given more time, things would work themselves out. but there was no time. And if he didn't make up his mind now, he might regret it later. No career, no family. Larissa, why don't you invite Cindy in? Thank God he's alive. Cindy, I need to talk to you, but not here. Are you hungry? Let's go to the restaurant. Cindy wanted to say no. She doesn't want to eat. She did. But the director was so tense. He didn't seem to expect an answer. Cindy became anxious. Is she being fired? So why go to the restaurant? Could the order be passed through the secretary? She looked at Larissa, but only shrugged her shoulders. In the restaurant, Jacob made an order, not penetrating what he ordered. And Cindy was afraid to say a word. She was uncomfortable. She could sense that Jacob was nervous. A strange, palpable tension hung over the table. Cindy, I have to tell you, no, not like this. It's weird, but I'll be blunt. I can't find the word. I suggest you marry me. Marry me. Original? No, it's commonplace. The rich and successful always marry a mongrel they find on the spur of the moment. We've known since we were kids that every prince is a Cinderella. And now I'm supposed to squeal with delight and roll my eyes. Cindy, I'll try to explain. I'm supposed to be married in a month. I won't explain why. I'll just say that my career depends on it. I like you. I thought if I'm going to marry you, why not you? My motive, I hope, is clear. This marriage is good for you too. It will save you and your son a lot of trouble, especially financial. I've seen you struggle to earn a living. You've been alone for so many years. Hope you ever get tired of being alone. I'm not talking about love, silly in our situation, but I promise to do everything I can to make you and your son happy. Jacob, how old are you? 40. I'm 32. That's 8 years apart. You think that such a difference allows you to consider yourself mature, wise, and calculating, and me a knave fool who will ruin her life if you remember with a carrot. You are fundamentally wrong. I'm not going to ruin your life, but I can make it more comfortable and remove some problems. Do you like writing term papers at night? I don't know. I haven't thought about it. No, I guess not. But the category of like, don't like is not for me. I just have to. Why do you have such a problem? How many do you have? Jacob, you do realize that solving problems with a random marriage is a way to cause more problems. Don't you have any other candidates? I do. But I thought you might be more than a casual marriage. I realize I'm a bit of a shocker, but I want you to think about it. But don't take too long. It's important to me. Cindy was very fond of Thomas, but he died over 3 years ago. Of course, she thought of a new relationship, wanted love. Imagined what her chosen one would be like. But Peyton was never in those dreams. Men of such flight never even dreamed of it. It's weird, this whole thing is like a soap opera. It's where a wealthy, powerful man marries a poor provincial girl. And then it turns out he's already killed 3 wives. Peyton didn't look like that. Then who does? Who knows? Now Cindy was always thinking about Jacob. If the situation had not been so ridiculous, if Jacob Peyton had not been her boss, if they had met under different circumstances, who knows where to put all these ifs? Cindy thought back to Thomas' words, "You will always be happy, successful, and strong." Maybe Jacob, her chance to be that. The more Cindy thought, the less ridiculous the idea of marrying Jacob seemed. How long could you work day and night trying to give your son a decent one? No, not decent, but a more or less tolerable life. If, as psychologists advise, you write a list of pros and cons of marrying Jacob Peyton. The pros column will not fit on the page under the cons column. There will be 2 items. 1, I don't know him. 2, what about love? But so far, love hasn't happened in Cindy's life, and there's a good chance it never will. In 15 years, Alex will grow up and she'll be alone. That's when she'll weep for her unfulfilled feminine destiny. Can you imagine what life would be like if she married Jacob to regret that she missed the only chance to be happy? People are good at making excuses for their failures. Everyone had a situation when you have to make a choice, made a choice, chose your way, and then many years later, justifying not too happy life, thought that if you had turned the other way, everything would have been different. How it would have been there is not known, you do not live, you will not know. But the regret remains. Cindy didn't sleep at night. Her thoughts bounced from Jacob to Alex, from endless projects to unpaid bills. Some kind of mix, Jacob and Alex thought. Why do they have to get along? Am I really getting married? Don't forget to pay the light bill tomorrow. Shit, I don't have enough for sneakers again. Twirling, sighing no, I couldn't sleep. She approached the mirror in the shimmering color of the moon and lanterns. A mysterious, very beautiful woman looked at her. Could it be her? You can't help but like her. You could fall madly in love with someone like that. Maybe I saw something in her too. My mirror, my light. Tell me, what should I do? Will Alex be well off, but with a stranger? All right, enough of talking to the mirror in a very skillful way. Good, no one can see. Turn on the light, the beauty is mysterious and all the mystery evaporates. Cindy tried not to get in front of Jacob Andreevich, did not know what to say and how to behave. She didn't understand. She was afraid that she would not be able to look him in the eye, as if she were guilty of something. I sat in the office, tried to work, but it did not work. My mind was elsewhere. Cindy. Cindy. Cindy looked up, and there she was standing in the office doorway. Kelly, I'm calling you, and you don't hear me? You've got something weird going on, that's weird. I'm not sick. Let's go to the nurse's station. I need to take your blood pressure. Do you look like you're going into a coffin? No, Kelly, I'm fine. I've just been staring at you brooding. I've been staring at you for 5 minutes, and you haven't noticed. You got secrets. The kind you can't even tell me, I'll tell you. I just don't know what it is that he's not hitting on right now. My head is spinning. I'll come to you as soon as I figure something out. You're intriguing. Don't shadow me too long or I'll die of curiosity. At the end of the day, Jacob came in. Cindy, stop working and let me take you home. I'd like to talk to you. Everyone in the office froze. Wow. They were trying not to stare, but they were craning their necks trying not to miss the details of such a fascinating moment. Cindy quickly threw her things into her bag and sprinted out of the office. As they walked down the hall, she sang, "They're crazy. What's the point of gossiping now? And I don't know something. You're not free, or are you saving my honor?" Jacob was having fun. Cindy, I feel like such an idiot. I proposed to a girl. True, I haven't gotten an answer yet, but I'm almost a groom. I forgot about the candy and flowers, so at least I'll get her home. Yeah, they'll say that's a good thing. At least she'll remember that I'm not only a director, but also a man. But you'll refuse me. Everyone will pity me, and they'll twiddle their thumbs at the sight of me. I'm sorry, Cindy. I'm trying to play it cool, but I know it's not human. If we could just get to know each other better, then it'd be easier. Tomorrow's a day off. Let's spend it together. What does your son like to do? Amusement park, movie theater, zoo. I honestly don't know what 7-year-old men like, but I want to impress him. All right, let's give it a shot. Maybe there's nothing more to talk about until tomorrow, Jacob. I was worried about the kids. He didn't have any other kids. He didn't really notice. How do you deal with a 7-year-old? You had no idea what to talk to him about. I didn't know. If the boy didn't want to talk to him, Cindy would turn him down, and he had gotten used to the idea that Cindy was his future wife. Kind of forgot about it. Why would he do that? Cindy was even more worried. A date with Jacob was an extraordinary event in itself, and then Alex had to explain who these uncles were and why he was walking with them. I was afraid that the walk would turn out to be a disappointment for all 3 of them together. There's nothing to talk about. And if adults somehow try to observe decency, Alex will not pretend. He'll say he's fed up and ask to go home. The weekend will be ruined, and Cindy's doubts are at an end. Not getting married was already kind of on her mind, but the weekend was surprisingly fun and interesting. Alex still hadn't decided where he wanted to go, or rather, wanted everything. So we went to the movies. At the amusement park, we argued for a long time about which merry-go-round was cooler. Roller skating. But Jacob said he'd pass. He's too old to rollerblade without it. He'll wait here all day. Cindy looked at Jacob, trying to understand if he was really interested in them or if he was pretending. Not if he's getting married, though. I tried to provoke him. Left them with Alex. One seems to enjoy having fun and they don't remember. It's a little frustrating. But it's nice that Jacob's not pretending. We had dinner at a cafe, had ice cream, and took a perfectly happy and falling asleep from fatigue and gluttony Alex home. Cindy was putting her son to bed. His eyes were already closed, but the excitement of the day was keeping him awake. Mom, is Uncle Jacob still coming? I don't know. We'll see. It would be a pity if he didn't come with him. I wonder. Sleep, honey, maybe he will come. Alex fell asleep. Cindy couldn't sleep. So many impressions, not from the rides, of course. It was the socializing. It had been a long time since Cindy had been around. So easy and interesting, and with a stranger, in general, a person. I went out on the balcony and suddenly I saw Jacob on the bench outside. He wasn't looking at the windows, just sitting there thinking about something. He hadn't left. Cindy came out of the driveway. Jacob. Jacob, if it's okay, just Jacob. Jacob, you. Why didn't you leave? I just wanted to sit here. You know, Cindy, I realized today that my strange, unreasonable desire to marry you. It's no accident. Remember I said I should get married? I like you. So why not you? Cindy, I'm going to propose to you again, but for a different reason. I want you to be my wife. Don't answer yet. I'm already sure. Do you need time? Alex is yours. I'm just in love. I want a son like that. I'll be a good father to him, if he doesn't mind. Kelly has a deadly grudge against Cindy. Everyone at the factory knows Cindy's having an affair with the director. She's the best friend. Not a clue. Who would do such a thing? It's a spitting image. It's sneaky, but the quiet one didn't say a word. How could you not tell me? I mean, it's a pig's ass. Such a life-changing experience, and I'm left out, or you don't have friends like me anymore. You could have just said, Kelly, not a friend. You told me more about Jacob from another planet. You're on another planet now, too, and you're gonna be friends with your alien friends. Kelly, what are you talking about? Cindy hugged her friend. I didn't tell you because I don't know what to say. We're not having an affair. You're insulting me. I can't even explain what we're having. He wants to marry me. But it's not about feelings or romance. It's some kind of mutual aid agreement. I can't explain it. I can't even understand it. So tell me everything in detail and we'll figure it out together. I know you'll make a tragedy out of nothing. You're smart, of course, but you're no expert. I'm not a professor either, but I have more experience, and I've been in more trouble. Go ahead, I'm ready. You don't have to be so choosy, you can just spit it out. Cindy was telling me a long story of a strange relationship with Jacob, talking as if she was trying to gauge what it looked like from the outside. Kelly listened and didn't understand what was so unusual about it. Judging by Jacob's story, really liked Cindy. There was nothing strange about it. Cindy is smart and beautiful. It just so happens he didn't have time to woo and take the charm. It could have been a beautiful love story, but it turned out ugly with a marriage of convenience. Cindy, I get it. You can't marry without love. Jacob, he's leaving. Will you stay? You'll marry out of boredom and loneliness. I don't think you're gonna compare all men to Jacob for love. And no one can reach him. So you can't do it out of convenience. Desperation does. Or maybe you should just fall in love with Jacob and you won't have any problems. And he's easy to fall in love with. He's good from every angle. Why don't you take a look at him? You can do it. And if I don't? I like him, but getting married. And then hoping to fall in love is scary. It's better the other way around. Do you want to be happy? I do, but can I? You should try to do better and regret it. If you let a man like that go, you'll regret it. And come back to our misery and wait for happiness to fall on you. You'll always have time. Now fate is looking at you and thinking, fool woman. I gave her a chance, and she kicks it in the ass. So stay in your swamp and she'll never look at you again. Kelly, you're right, aren't you? Should we go along with it? What am I saying? You gotta grab it. I mean, he's a good guy. I don't think so. I don't know when you'll meet someone like him. There's still time. Look at how he's going to communicate with Alex. Sanka needs a man around him. If Jacob's gonna be good here too, you'd be a fool to say no. The conversation with Kelly seemed to turn Cindy's thoughts in a different direction. Whereas before it was just agree or disagree, now it's what if? And as we believe, marriage to Jacob no longer seemed like a delusional idea. Sure, this marriage is more like a bargain, but the bargain is in her favor. What does she have to lose? If it doesn't work out, she gets a divorce. What if it works out? What if it's a chance to change her life? Cindy almost no longer doubted and has not yet decided, but more and more often thought that either I am her ticket to a prosperous life, and maybe if she is lucky and in a happy life. One day, Jacob brought Cindy to his apartment. Look, this room will be Alex's. The furniture is certainly not childish, but there is no point in changing it. In 2 weeks, I send the documents, and if our gurus vote for me, we'll go to New York. But it may happen that I won't make it to the board of directors. Then I'll have to move too, but to some other town where there's a furniture factory just like this, breathing on the lamb. My work here is done. That would be a shame. Cindy's heart stopped. What's a shame? It's a shame I married someone I don't know. It didn't help your career. If you marry me, you won't be in New York. You'll be at the end of the world. I want you to know that. It can happen that way too. Think, Cindy, do you want it? Now he said exactly what Cindy wanted to hear. Even if his career doesn't work out, he wants to marry her, and she's okay with that. Cindy already knew she would, only she didn't believe herself yet. 2 weeks to go. She had to make up her mind. Well, she could still help Jacob. Or was I driving and looking at Cindy? She looked so focused that he hesitated to speak. Jacob, stop here. Do you have your passport with you? Yes. Then let's go to the registry office. We'll apply. Behind the table sat a woman with a stern look, raised a heavy look at the entrance. Well, they've come to get married. She could tell at once who was getting married and who was getting divorced. She hadn't believed in the institution of marriage for a long time. She'd seen enough, and these people kept coming and going. We'd like to apply. Come in and fill out the forms. I'll see if it's Friday or Saturday next month. We don't need a grand registration. We can just get married any day, but early and in a month it'll be too late. If you've brought him to the registry office, he won't go anywhere in a month. No, you don't get it. Jacob intervened. In 2 weeks I'm going abroad for a year, and I can't leave her here. She'll run away. I've barely talked her into it. Please find us a place early. I'll never be married. The woman looked doubtful. It happens. It seemed to her that such men could not run away. It's more the other way around. I mean, she's a pretty girl, but she's not his type. She won the lottery. Why didn't she get a lottery ticket like that in her life? At least let it be a lucky one. Feeling like a magnanimous master of destinies, the woman asked in a week's time. Cindy laughed. How convincingly you lie. But I'm for the good of the cause. You didn't have to what? I'll just remember that you can't always be trusted. So the decision's been made. The date's set. What about the wedding? Cindy suggested we just get married. No witnesses, no friends, no wedding. Jacob objected. I want a little celebration. It's an extraordinary event. Nick and his wife Helen must be there. Jacob couldn't imagine a celebration without them. They've been through too much together. And Kelly, the closest person to Cindy, is a must. It is also necessary to invite Andrew, a faithful companion and co-author of such a company, to go to the restaurant. And Cindy must wear a wedding dress. Let it not be white, but solemn. Cindy was agreed to everything, except the dress. There is no elands and lace. Paul and the dress would sort it out for herself, but the restaurants and menus are on the groom's conscience. With Helen, her guests will be easier. Cindy, don't divide your guests into yours and mine. Nick, as you put it, the capital things became not so long ago. Helen, you'll be sure to be told about their connections. Celebrity life loves to chat. You'd be surprised. How much do you have in common? Open, sincere person. Kind of like your Kelly, so don't be afraid of my guests. I'll call them tonight. Let them worry. Let them worry about the body I'm in. Kelly was as happy as if she just landed a great groom. Cindy's wedding was a sign to her that girls over 30 had a good chance of getting married. She'd instilled that idea. Cindy told friends and acquaintances, but there wasn't much proof. Now who didn't? It's true, Cindy seems to have stolen the last prince. But that's all right. We're fine with mere mortals. The main thing is that a precedent has been set. We have something to show those who don't believe. The night before the wedding, Cindy hardly slept at all. Her mind was racing. When she married Thomas, it had all been just youth, love, anticipation, and happiness. Now she was drastically changing her life, and not just her own. Into this new life she was leading Alex. Would he be happy there? It was unsettling. Kelly was eager to come in the morning and get the bride ready for the registry office. Cindy didn't want to go through all those antiquated rituals. I can't put on my own dress. I'll meet you at the registry office. Kelly and Andrew were waiting for them at the Zecos. Nick hadn't flown in yet. They'd come straight to the restaurant. Cindy came out of the car in a gray pearl dress. The style was like Audrey Hepburn in the movie Roman Holiday. Favor figure allowed next to elegant Jacob in a dark gray suit. Behind them, an incredible miracle in a plaid suit with a bow tie. Alex Kelly was stunned. What a beauty. Pure Hollywood. So a tear came through. Nick was greeted with flowers at the entrance to the restaurant. Average height, average and well-fed. Yes, frankly, an average-looking man. And next to him, a woman of incredible beauty. Either a screen star or an international model. Turns out she's a housewife with 3 kids, but Cindy found that out later. Congratulations, shouts of Gorko. They toasted to the happiness of the young people. Everyone was happy except Cindy. She was suddenly jammed. She looked at the gorgeous Helen Nick and realized she'd never be like her. And Jacob needed a wife like that. It's in the line by status. All the time it seemed that Nick looked evaluating, and it was unclear whether he liked what he saw. A longing was growing. She'd done it all for nothing. She wouldn't fit in with Jacob's circle of friends. She was the wrong bird. Helen seemed to realize what was happening to Cindy. She approached Jacob. Move over, fiancé. Sat down next to Cindy, waved at Kelly. Come here. Boys, go to the bar. Have a drink. The boys would have been better off drinking at the table. But if Helen says we should. Cindy, I'm so glad Jacob met you. I was afraid he'd fall for some cheek like his ex-wife again. He's always surrounded by greedy, stupid bitches. He needs his family. We've been closer than family for 100 years, but we're not his family. Helen and Nick, 2 penniless students from Novosibirsk, set out to conquer the capital. Barely enough money to rent a room in a communal apartment. And not always. They were kicked out of one, moved into another, and worked wherever they could. And then Helen got pregnant. Nick ran his projects all over New York. Some of them looked interested. More often he was shunned. But he wouldn't give up. He had a family to feed. That's when he met Jacob, a loner genius like him. They probably would have made it on their own, but the 2 of them were an unstoppable force. They knocked down walls with their foreheads. A few years later, when Nick already had 2 children, the friends were firmly on their feet. Throwing around the communal room was a thing of the past when Helen gave birth to their 3rd child. Nick began to build a country house for a large family, cramped in a Moscow apartment. They wanted space. Now the family lived in the country. In the city apartment lived the eldest son, a student. And Nick sometimes stayed overnight. When to go out of town, there was no more strength. Our men work hard and hard. Only mine has someone for whom he knows he's waited for and loved. And yours, for all his outward confidence and well-being, will soon begin to howl with loneliness and longing. Of course we're happy, we'll help and we'll listen. But that's not it. He, if he met a girl, came to us, wanted us to appreciate, said yes, a good girl. And we couldn't say it face to face. We just said something like, she's beautiful. You know better. When Jacob called and said he was getting married, Nick got upset. He doesn't want to introduce us, so we don't talk him out of it. I thought Jacob had already made up his mind. And this time he doesn't need counselors. I understand your doubts. We're all new to you. You don't know us. And Jacob, for that matter, neither. But I can feel him. He believes that happiness is possible for him too. It'll be hard for you. It'll take some getting used to. But if you trust him, you'll make it work. I know it will. Ooh, you're talking like a psychic. I feel it. I know it. I just really want Jacob to be happy. He was a good guy, and for all his ineptitude at picking out women, I think he was right this time. Lucky, finally. Kelly had tears in her eyes. She wanted her friend to be happy. And Jacob seemed like a good man, even if he was a boss. What about Helen? Good girl. She said it all so well. She's got it all laid out. Cindy seems to have calmed down. Helen's cheerful Cindy is really relieved. Helen pinpointed the cause of her anxiety. An amazing woman, so beautiful and so wise. I wanted to be alone and think about what I just heard. I'm going to stand on the terrace. Until the men returned, on the terrace of the restaurant stood trees and rollers, quietly running water. Fountains in the corners burned lanterns. It was beautiful, quiet, and peaceful. Cindy walked over to the railing, looking out over the dark park with its sacred paths. Couples strolled along one and children raced on scooters along the next. Not far from the terrace in the shade of a tree stood a man, Cindy. He seemed to be looking directly at her. She couldn't see it. It was dark, but it was as if she could feel the man's gaze. The man stepped out onto the path and stood under the streetlight. Cindy froze. Her heart shivered. Thomas was looking at her. How could it be? A coincidence? Just a resemblance? Cindy was frightened. She remembered that she'd thought she'd seen Thomas once before. But why was it today, on her wedding day, that guilt was planting the vision? So she didn't blame Thomas for anything. She loved him and would always remember him and miss him. Cindy Kelly came out on the terrace. Come on, the groom's pining. Kelly, I just saw Thomas. He was standing there, overexcited about the event, so he dreamed it. Don't tell Jacob about it. He'll get upset. He'll think you can't forget Thomas, or something's wrong. If you see your dead husband, forget about the past. You can't go back. You have a different life now. Come on, they're waiting for you. The past is following you. What was the gypsy talking about? Wasn't it Thomas? What the hell is going on? I've forgotten everything. Is she imagining it, or am I waiting for her wedding? I don't want to spoil it for myself or anyone else. Cindy went back into the hall, saw a worried Jacob. He seemed so close to her. Her heart ached. Here was her present and happy future. Right after the wedding, Jacob started talking about wanting to adopt Sasha. It's a strange situation. I have a wife, but no son. My wife has a husband and a son. It's like I have one family and you have two. It's not fair. Jacob, you gotta tell Alex something. He's a little kid, but you have to ask him. I already did. And the young man gave me an ultimatum. Never to call him Shurik. I agreed. It's a harsh condition, but what can I do? Cindy threw herself around Jacob's neck. Jacob, you're wonderful. I keep waiting for you to tell me you're hurting me. Helena fell in love with her husband very quickly. She didn't expect herself to be so quick. She liked her new family life. She was no longer afraid of change. What's there to be afraid of? Jacob was around. The board of directors, headed by the all-powerful Benjamin, voted unanimously and waited for Jacob to hand over the deed. A new director was sent to the factory, and Jacob was working late into the night. Cindy tried to pass by his office more often at the factory. She'd see her husband through the glass and smile happily. She liked to make the house cozy, to meet her husband from work, to cook some incredible dinners. True, Jacob was sometimes unable to appreciate almost falling asleep at the table. There was not much free time, but Jacob was eager to go home to Cindy and Alex. Or I long dreamed of home and family, longed, envied Nick and Helen, and thought that such happiness would not happen to him. I tried not to think about my first family. It made him sick. Hunting wealthy men had convinced him that there was no love in this world. Such a family, which Jacob imagined, none of his few girls did not need. He didn't want much, a comfortable home. A loving wife wanted to be waited for, bored, to be squealed at by his children. When he came home, he wanted people to say, "I missed you for so long." It seemed like a dream come true. Cindy was convinced once again that Kelly should always be listened to. Her friend had been right about falling in love with Jacob, so she did. Good thing she got married. Otherwise, she'd be biting her elbows and crying herself to sleep. She envied herself such a man. Smart, handsome, caring. What else? Most importantly, loving and cherished. Cindy had almost forgotten that she and Jacob were not a couple. When such thoughts returned, she chased them away. As long as there was happiness to be had, there would be happiness to be had. Even if New York didn't suit her, it would be enough. She said that, but she didn't believe herself. No, it won't be like that. She and Jacob would be together forever. They were getting ready to arrive. So Alex wouldn't languish in the apartment, where every day more and more boxes and less things took him for 2 weeks in a country children's camp. Cindy quit her job. There's plenty to do before she leaves, and quitting will still have to be done. So Pulling Kelly left and reread in the spirit. Who were you leaving us for, but you were happy for your friend? Cindy stood in the store near the window display and could not decide what to buy. She looked up from the window and saw a man walking fast in the window opposite. Again, she thought it was Thomas. She sprinted out of the store. A man flashed far ahead. Cindy ran. She saw him enter the hotel as she flew into the lobby. That one was empty. Only a party stood behind the counter. Cindy was at a loss to ask the porter if Thomas Scott lived in the hotel. No use. It was unlikely that the dead man lived under his own name. It wasn't Thomas, though. That was silly. It was. Cindy took a seat on the sofa. I wasn't expecting anything, just taking a breather. About 5 minutes later, the fire alarm sounded. The lobby quickly filled with guests not running for the exit in droves. Cindy saw Thomas again. He wasn't running, he was walking quickly through the lobby. Cindy grabbed her phone and managed to snap a picture. Thomas disappeared out the door. It was him. Cindy realized it couldn't be, but it was Thomas that she saw. There was no fire in the hotel. Why had the alarm gone off? It's unclear. The guests were cautiously returning. Everyone was reassured. The alarm was triggered by a malfunction. Cindy kept sitting on it, eyeing the porter warily. Realizing that he was about to come over to ask what she was doing here, Cindy left. At home, she sat for a while longer, realized that she'd get her head back here, but couldn't think of anything. So she called Kelly. Kelly, I'm not crazy, but I saw Thomas. It was definitely him. Look, maybe he had a twin brother. What are you talking about? What twin? I'm telling you, I saw him. Now he wasn't following me, I was following him. I took a picture of him. It doesn't look like it's him. What do we do? I don't have to go to the police. I've seen my dead husband. Find him for me. Either it's a very similar person, but why would he be following me? Or is he the one I buried? Kelly had never noticed Cindy's overly suspicious persecution mania. She didn't suffer from that either. Something strange was going on. What surprised Kelly the most was that Cindy was quite calm about it. If it had happened to her, with Kelly, hysteria would have been assured, and all the police in town would already be catching the ghost of her husband. Cindy Andrew has a friend. He's a detective. I'll ask him to meet you. I'll call you back. Despite her agitated state, Cindy managed to notice the phrases Andrew has a friend. I'll ask him. What would that mean? Kelly and Lesha had never been close. Kelly, did Andrew frown? Okay, we'll deal with that later. Right now, I'd like to see the detective. The detective turned out to be a 50-something overweight guy with a tired face. Cindy had imagined private detectives a little differently. She thought they should be young and energetic. At least in the movies they were young, obliging, ran fast, climbed through windows, and drove at the level of stuntmen. Any vehicle from a scooter to an airplane. But Andrew assured me it was an uncle who introduced himself as Frank. Frank, an ex-special ops cop, spent a long time comparing Thomas' photo to the cell phone photo. Well, it looks like they're twins. You say the husband was killed in an accident. Did you identify the body? Yeah, they called me, but he was burned. And I was really scared. I didn't look closely. They showed me a cross and a ring. They were on Thomas when he left. Was there an investigation? No, there wasn't. An accident, something in the back of the truck caught fire. Tell me in detail what happened at the hotel. Alina told me. He listened attentively. Suddenly, he got a little excited. I'll take a picture of your husband. I'll show it to my former colleagues. See if they know anything. I'll also ask about the fire. A day later, Frank showed up and told Cindy what he'd learned the day the hotel alarm went off in the house across the street in his own office. A businessman had died. The gunfire came from the hotel. Similar crimes had happened 8 times in different cities in recent years. All worked by the same person, apparently a professional. The alarm was set off to get out of the hotel quickly and easily because the house across the street security instantly realized where the shots were coming from. Are you saying that the shooter is Thomas? What is this nonsense? That he's a professional shooter, you know that. Again, she thought it was Thomas. She sprinted out of the store. A man flashed far ahead. Cindy ran. She saw him enter the hotel as she flew into the lobby. That one was empty. Only a party stood behind the counter. Cindy was at a loss to ask the porter if Thomas Scott lived in the hotel. No use. It was unlikely that the dead man lived under his own name. It wasn't Thomas, though. That was silly. It was. Cindy took a seat on the sofa. I wasn't expecting anything, just taking a breather. About 5 minutes later, the fire alarm sounded. The lobby quickly filled with guests not running for the exit in droves. Cindy saw Thomas again. He wasn't running, he was walking quickly through the lobby. Cindy grabbed her phone and managed to snap a picture. Thomas disappeared out the door. It was him. Cindy realized it couldn't be, but it was Thomas that she saw. There was no fire in the hotel. Why had the alarm gone off? It's unclear. The guests were cautiously returning. Everyone was reassured. The alarm was triggered by a malfunction. Cindy kept sitting on it, eyeing the porter warily, realizing that he was about to come over to ask what she was doing here. Cindy left. At home, she sat for a while longer, realized that she'd get her head back here, but couldn't think of anything. So she called Kelly. Kelly, I'm not crazy, but I saw Thomas. It was definitely him. Look, maybe he had a twin brother. What are you talking about? What twin? I'm telling you, I saw him. Now he wasn't following me, I was following him. I took a picture of him. It doesn't look like it's him. What do we do? I don't have to go to the police. I've seen my dead husband. Find him for me. Either it's a very similar person, but why would he be following me? Or is he the one I buried? Kelly had never noticed Cindy's overly suspicious persecution mania. She didn't suffer from that either. Something strange was going on. What surprised Kelly the most was that Cindy was quite calm about it. If it had happened to her, with Kelly, hysteria would have been assured, and all the police in town would already be catching the ghost of her husband. Cindy Andrew has a friend. He's a detective. I'll ask him to meet you. I'll call you back. Despite her agitated state, Cindy managed to notice the phrases Andrew has a friend. I'll ask him. What would that mean? Kelly and Lesha had never been close. Kelly, did Andrew frown? Okay, we'll deal with that later. Right now, I'd like to see the detective. The detective turned out to be a 50-something overweight guy with a tired face. Cindy had imagined private detectives a little differently. She thought they should be young and energetic. At least in the movies they were young, obliging, ran fast, climbed through windows, and drove at the level of stuntmen. Any vehicle from a scooter to an airplane. But Andrew assured me it was an uncle who introduced himself as Frank. Frank, an ex-special ops cop, spent a long time comparing Thomas' photo to the cell phone photo. Well, it looks like they're twins. You say the husband was killed in an accident. Did you identify the body? Yeah, they called me, but he was burned. And I was really scared. I didn't look closely. They showed me a cross and a ring. They were on Thomas when he left. Was there an investigation? No, there wasn't. An accident, something in the back of the truck caught fire. Tell me in detail what happened at the hotel. Alina told me. He listened attentively. Suddenly, he got a little excited. I'll take a picture of your husband. I'll show it to my former colleagues. See if they know anything. I'll also ask about the fire. A day later, Frank showed up and told Cindy what he'd learned the day the hotel alarm went off in the house across the street in his own office. A businessman had died. The gunfire came from the hotel. Similar crimes had happened 8 times in different cities in recent years. All worked by the same person, apparently a professional. The alarm was set off to get out of the hotel quickly and easily because the house across the street security instantly realized where the shots were coming from. Are you saying that the shooter is Thomas? What is this nonsense? That he's a professional shooter, you know that. She had no strength. A scary black gypsy woman was reaching out from Cindy and whispering past deeds. The trouble clouded over with some kind of nasty, nasty sound. Cindy didn't realize it was snapping out of a dark dream. Cindy realized that someone was insistently ringing the doorbell. The dream wouldn't let go. With a heavy head, Cindy wandered to the door. Who is it? Cindy Scott. Delivery. Apparently not fully awake, because she wasn't surprised to be called by her first husband's last name. Opened the door, took a small envelope from the delivery girl, slammed the door, and went into the kitchen. Coffee first, everything else later. In the envelope was an old photograph, a patch of woods, a small house, a big black dog lying on the porch. No people in the picture. There was something familiar about the picture, but now Cindy couldn't remember the house. She'd seen it, or this picture. At the bottom of the envelope was a key, an ordinary key, hundreds of them. So why had she been sent this? Cindy sipped her coffee and thought about what she could make for dinner. Jacob would be late again. Tired, exhausted. I can't wait to move in. There'd be rationing, at least they'd get to spend evenings together. She missed Jacob. She wanted to be near him and miss Alex. The second week at camp, it was like someone clicked in her head. Why Scott? Why had the package come in her ex-husband's name? Instantly, Cindy woke up and shook the picture out of the envelopes. Yes, she does. She knows this house. Young student Cindy and hopeful athlete Thomas Day could not live without each other. When Thomas left for training camp, Cindy didn't understand how to live without her lover. She waited. But they had nowhere to meet. Cindy lived with Thomas' mother in a dormitory, about 20 kilometers from the city. Uncle Thomas lived on the farm. He was a slow, wise old man who had no one in the world except his favorite nephew. Cindy and Thomas had visited him several times. It was the house that was in the picture and the dog. Cindy remembered. A huge, black, very intelligent sheepdog named Byron Thomas. He was the one who'd sent it. So he's alive. It wasn't a dream or a vision. How could it be? It's the doorbell again. It's crowded in here today. Cindy opened the door to Kelly. Kelly, where are you? We're worried. Who's we? Me and Andrew. Andrew, I see. Well, what do you understand? It's a clarifying question. Cindy, well, no one's an idiot. Andrew is certainly a topic for conversation, but right now it's just not up to him. Has Frank learned anything from what he's saying? Frank's talking nonsense. He's delusional. Well, you'll have to ask him yourself. I've got a picture and a key that Cindy posted. Looks like my dead husband's asking me out on a date. You're not going. Promise me you won't. Did you tell Jacob? He's the husband. He has a right to know. Kelly, Jacob's not the best person to talk to right now. He's already sleeping 3 hours a night. Thomas is my husband too, by the way. How happy is that? I have 2 husbands, and not so long ago I had neither. Wondrous are thy works, O Lord. She's still joking. Look at her, good people, she has a wonderful, happy life, but it's falling apart. Her husband is calm, he follows her around, and she's joking, not realizing that there's some shit going on around you. What did you say about the picture? Calm down, I'm not going anywhere. Thomas died, I understand that, but I don't understand why anyone would want to make me believe he's alive. Kelly, I'm sane, but I can't imagine who would want to play me. What's the big deal? The kind of person I am to make such a fuss over me. Kelly was worried. She felt that Cindy was taking things lightly. Jacob need not be disturbed. Absorbed in her love for Jacob, doesn't see the danger. Smart, grown-up woman, but she acts like a naive fool, dismissing the obvious. What are the side effects of love? However, it often happens. A woman falls in love and immediately becomes stupid. Kelly knew her friend so well that she understood. It's useless to persuade her, she'll do her own thing. To meddle in someone else's life, of course, indecent. But Kelly decided to stay out of it. She didn't like the situation too much. No matter what Cindy said, she would tell Jacob. He needed to know what the hell was going on around his wife. Cindy assured her that she wasn't going to go anywhere or find out anything. But Kelly didn't believe her, and she would. And it wouldn't end well. She has a husband. Let him fix her brain. Kelly ran off to work determined to talk to her family. Hunted him all over the factory, but to no avail. Jacob saw that Kelly wanted to say something but dismissed it. "Not now, I'll come to you." "God, we better get out of here soon." "We gotta get Cindy out of here, before there's any hard feelings." Kelly was worried for a reason, as she had a hunch Cindy wouldn't stay at home. Cindy looked at the photograph, remembering her happy but short life with Thomas. If he was alive, why had he faked his death? Where has he been all these years? I know Cindy's pain and fear without him. And he never showed up. Cindy didn't believe Thomas was the culprit. The Thomas she knew would never hurt anyone, and there was no need to scare her that he was dangerous. No one knows him better than Cindy. Why was she sent that picture? There must be something in the house that explains what happened. What's there to guess? We should go and see it. No more secrets. The thought of calling Jacob or Kelly crossed her mind. But Cindy dismissed it. Jacob wouldn't know where she was going. And Kelly would panic. It's not a long drive. She'd be back by tonight. The city's police force was in emergency mode. A future MP and now a powerful Covington businessman was killed. In fact, he was wounded, but to the public he was dead. Investigator Adal Wolf was perplexed. Incredible luck on this ghoul's part, where his shooter had never missed before. But the operative's fatal bad luck did not get the shooter, so it was decided to declare him dead. And suddenly, as a thunder of clear sky in the news story about the attempted assassination of a businessman, Adal Wolf tore and thrashed. Those Stiliagi, that verbal incontinence, didn't have enough brains to keep silent. They're coming to finish him off. Increase security at the hospital. I'll find out which one's on the left. Get out with a wolf ticket. Cut up the land. But find something on that shooter. Cindy had reached the village, now 15 minutes through the woods, and she'd be at home. Walking through the bright summer woods, she remembered how happy she and Thomas had been when they walked here. They wanted nothing more than to be together if he was alive. How could he leave her? It's like taking out his soul. And how did he live without a soul and without love? Uncle Thomas was long dead. The house stood abandoned. It even looked abandoned and forlorn. Skewed with evil walls and muddy windows, with difficulty turning the key in the lock, Cindy opened the door. It smelled gray and dusty. It was the smell of longing and hopelessness. It didn't seem like anyone was in the house. Cindy walked through the house, dust everywhere. The cobwebs on the walls are dark. You can see the roof is leaking. The derelict house had no use for anyone and was quietly dying. I'd hoped in vain to find clues. There's nothing here. But someone sent the picture. Why did Cindy get scared? She shouldn't have come here. We have to get out of this gloomy place. The idiot went looking for the past. Cindy jumped out of the house, slammed the door. The key wouldn't turn, the lock was all rusty. Well, the hell with it. Who needs this house? With its rotten goodness, let it stay open. I put a brick on the door so it wouldn't open in the wind and came down from the porch. Bright day, warm breeze, clear forest. Cindy stood framing her face to the sun. God with it, the past had been and gone. Thank you for what was. Cindy. Cindy shuddered. It was a voice she would recognize from 1,000. So forgotten, so familiar. One that was never to be heard again. She turned around. Thomas E. Cindy held Cindy tightly. Her shoulders nodded. Crying or something. Cindy wondered if she wasn't crying or fainting. Just a little dizzy. Stressed, I guess. How else to explain the strange calmness of meeting a man she buried years ago? I knew you'd come here. I followed you all these years, shadowed you, seen you suffer, knew how you lived, took pictures with Alex. The illusion that I know how he grows. You can't imagine how much it hurts, how hard it is not to come up, not to say I'm alive. Cindy carefully climbed out of his embrace, stepped back, and sat on a bench at home. And he was in pain. She had buried him. Didn't live, died, sobbed, scaring Alex at night with her fight. She would have given anything in the world to keep him alive. But then he never showed up, and now she doesn't even know if she's glad. What happened to you? Cindy. It's a long story, and it's hard to believe. I'll tell you about it sometime. Isn't there enough time now? No, will you tell me now? I've been guessing for 3 years. What happened to you? It was the first time Thomas had ever been on a long trip like that. He was nervous, of course, but after a couple days, he got the hang of it. I got used to it. My partner told me the basic rules of the track. The partner was a thorough, not wordy man. An experienced driver for nothing. He didn't get annoyed, didn't impose his opinion, didn't build up the yawn. After arriving in a city, Thomas would drive the truck to a warehouse and go to a motel. Then he took the car and drove on to unload and load something. He was not interested. It was already explained to him that it was his business to turn the steering wheel and not to interfere with anything. There is a trip sheet. Everything is written there on the highway. Sometimes the traffic police stopped him, but each driver had a certain amount of money for this case, given by the owner of the cargo. If they asked you to open the truck, you didn't argue, you opened it. We could not see the boxes, and the bottom to the ceiling was delayed with loading at the warehouse. Then we hit a traffic jam at the bridge and drove in the dark. We were about an hour away from the model. My partner was dozing. Thomas looked at the road and thought that we had already traveled half of the way. You could say they had turned for home. Something glittered in the light of the headlights on the road. Thomas hit the brakes, but the heavy truck kept moving. Thomas could see the huge spikes. And then the car skidded, spinning with a terrible screeching sound. It rolled sideways off the highway and into the trees. The impact was intense. Thomas blacked out for a moment, and when he regained consciousness, he tried to get out of the car. The door wouldn't open. There was no partner in the seat next to him. The door was open, and Thomas reached in behind the curtain under the recliner. Thomas concealed the barrel. He had a permit, so he took it on the road. Thomas realized the accident was set up, so he pulled out his gun and raised the trigger. He got to the door and fell out. Immediately, he noticed some movement. Someone was coming toward him from the blackness of the trees. A man came out with a gun in his hand. Thomas fired. I fired. I couldn't miss. You realize that. The man went down. Thomas sat on the ground by the car and didn't understand what was happening, where his partner was, who was trying to take him out, and why. Most importantly, what to do now. Several cars turned off the highway. The light of the headlights blinded Thomas. He covered his eyes with the palm of his hand. A door slammed. Thomas, come with me. In front of Thomas stood where? Where did he come from? Thomas stood up. His leg was very sore, either from the impact or when he fell from the cab. Kuda got into the car, waited until Thomas waddled out, and signaled the driver to get out. Now you sit down. Thomas looked at Covington in amazement. I was defending myself. They were trying to take me out. No, you weren't shot. But you were. In court, you'll be charged with felony murder because you killed a mercenary who had a lot of respected businessmen on his payroll. No one will believe it was an accident. I'm sure he's a mercenary. He's my shooter. But he was getting dangerous, so I had to take him out. And that's what I did. I wasn't wrong about you. Yeah, it was a risk. Who's who? But they forgot to tell him you don't stay with the gun. Thomas. It was like he went crazy, lost touch with reality. Where'd you set him up? He played the whole thing out. Didn't spare the truck and the cargo to take out an unwanted shooter. The fact that Thomas could have gotten himself killed, he didn't care. He didn't care what happened to Thomas. Cindy and Alex aren't even on the table. The wood chopped, the chips fell, the hatred boiled up in his soul. A benefactor gave me the job. He's got it all figured out. He won't let it go to trial. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said anything and he wouldn't be here. He doesn't even want Thomas as a defendant. He'll probably bury him here. I think you realize your only option is to take the shooter's place. It'll be a lot of money, but Thomas Scott will die. There won't be a man like that if you don't. Thomas Scott will still die, but for real. I have to think about it. People jumped out of, approached the cars, took out some of the cargo around the shooter's neck, put across Thomas, put a ring on his finger, put him in the cabin, and set him on fire. Thomas stood and watched the truck go up in flames, his life burning. All gone, no more Thomas Scott. Dead, burned. To everyone I was dead, everyone believed, even you. In my grave lies a gunman. I became a man with no name. You couldn't. I thought I could too, and then I realized I could. There was a lot of money. I decided to earn more so I could buy myself a new life and then get even. Where to? I did everything possible and impossible to be with you. And then he went to the deputy. It was clear he was going to cut the ends off. It was time to take him out. Did you take him out? No, I didn't. You interfered. You went to a detective. You leaked names. With a bunch of operatives running around. I couldn't get a clear shot, didn't want to get in their hands. Now there's nothing left to do but disappear. Here are my new documents, yours and Alex's. Thomas took out the documents and showed them to Cindy. Cindy's cell phone rang. He snatched it out of her hands and turned it off. He looked at his watch. The flight leaves in 7 hours. And I'm not going with you. That's what I figured. Thomas took out his phone, dialed a number, and told the boy it's time to call. Cindy's phone rang. Thomas handed it to her. It was Alex. Her voice was shaky and scared. Mommy, I've been taken away from camp. I don't know where Mommy is. I'm scared, save me. Cindy, I heard someone say pick up the phone, or something will slip into the handset, and the ringing went off. My heart sank and my ears buzzed that it was Thomas taking Alex. What about without you? Can't do everything for you? Cindy realized that a man who chose such a fate would stop at nothing. It wasn't her Thomas. Her Thomas wouldn't do that. He would have died. And he died 3 years ago. And this is a man she doesn't know. Her Thomas wouldn't hurt her son, couldn't blackmail her with her son's life, would never let Alex hurt her. What do you want? How could you? That's your son. I want my wife and son with me. But we're not your family. Who are you? What's your name? My Thomas is dead. He would have died 3 more times, but he wouldn't let me hurt Alex. I'm not your wife. Alex is not your son. But you have me now, and I'm not giving you to him. What's mine is mine. We'll all leave together. I've waited too long, done too much to make this possible. Cindy, you don't understand. I've made enough money that we can live anywhere in the world. We have enough for everything. Will you come with me? Thomas drew his gun and put it on the bench. You can't argue with him any further. His psyche is broken. He's becoming dangerous. Living on the edge of dead or alive for so many years. It's bound to make you crazy. Cindy jumped up from the bench, unable to sit next to him any longer. She wanted to look at his face, if there was anything human about him. Suddenly, she saw Jacob running from the woods. Thomas didn't see him. He was sitting with his back to her. We have to do something. Okay, I'll go. That's right. There's no need to be afraid. It's all in the past. It was just a job. You're my wife. You must understand me. We're going to live our lives the same way we used to. You and me and Alex. Cindy came close. We have to get him to stand up and move away from the bench where the gun is. Where is it? And he stood up with his arms around Cindy and whispered in her ear, Are you doing the right thing? Alex is fine. We're going to the airport now. They're bringing him straight there. We need to hold on to Thomas a little longer. Jacob's already outside the house. What happened to your partner? He was just looking out for me. I guess he's gone. He knows my face. So he's dead. Cindy saw Jacob. He was approaching them quietly, waving his hand at her. Stay back. Cindy bounced away from Thomas. Jacob lunged at him, and Cindy grabbed the gun. The forces were not equal. Thomas was clearly stronger. He pinned her against the wall and grabbed her by the throat. I won't give them to you. I won't give them to you. I'll kill you and her, but I won't give them to you. Cindy turned the trigger as you said, hand. Gun. You keep your hand firmly in the sights. What's next? Thomas saw the gun pointed at him out of the corner of his eye. You don't shoot. You won't shoot? You can't. Hand. The gun. Hooked on it, holding your hand steady. Shot. Cindy saw the bullet fly like slow motion as it slammed into Thomas's back as he slowly settled down, Abel. The gun fell out of her hands. Cindy lost consciousness and collapsed to the ground. In her delirium, she saw a gypsy woman. Again, the past frightened her and is following you around. Trouble lies ahead of them. There will be, yes, trouble happened to her. She crossed over her past. Thomas fell. Jacob couldn't breathe either. He couldn't get up, and he fell into Cindy's arms. He didn't know if she was alive. He tried to feel for a pulse, but his head was so buzzing that he couldn't feel or hear anything. Saw some people running. There was a commotion. Someone picked up Cindy in their arms. Someone tried to lift him from wherever he had come from. The cops surrounded Thomas, and he was screaming, so he was alive. Cindy was taken to the hospital, and Jacob refused to be hospitalized. He's fine, but his neck hurts and his voice is hoarse. He wanted to know what happened to Alex. That asshole knows where the boy is. Let him talk. He's his son. Thomas had already been taken away, but he gave the address. Jacob and the police went to get Alex. He was being held in an ordinary city apartment. 2 ambassadors. Realizing that Thomas was being held, they handed the child over without complaint. Alex was scared, but he had no injuries. He was crying and calling for his mom. Jacob grabbed him in his arms and did not let him go all the way home. He fed him, gave him tea, and put him to bed. But Alex could not calm down. Jacob again took him in his arms and held him tightly to himself. Sobs of a belligerent child. Cindy woke up, looked around the room. It looked like a hospital sitting nearby, only his eyes were closed, dozing. Cindy moved. Kelly immediately opened her eyes, jerked from behind the desk to run after the doctors. Cindy grabbed her arm. Alex, where? What's wrong with him? He's fine. He's home. Jacob won't leave his side. They're treating each other there, living well. I don't know if you're needed there. How did they find him? We didn't. Thomas is a complete scumbag, a criminal, but there's still some humanity left. Did he say where the kid was right away? We went and got him. So Thomas is alive. I thought I saw him fall. Well, he got up when he fell. You're not a very good shot. Didn't teach me, but it hurt. The police have been at your feet for years catching you, and you just took a shot. Jesus, Kelly, if you only knew how bad I feel, how much it hurts. Should I call a doctor? That's not what I'm talking about. Can you believe I shot Thomas? Thank God I didn't kill him. He's a criminal. I don't know how he lives with that. But he was my husband. He's Alex's father. If I hadn't just hurt him all his life, that weight would be on my soul. What kind of father is he? Alex doesn't remember him. How old was Alex when he supposedly died? You know, I get chills when I think about what kind of life Thomas lived. He didn't fake his death back then. He really died. Life was worse than death. Forget it. He's a fucked up man. He's not right in the head. A normal person wouldn't live like that. And he's not Alex's father. Alex, your dad is at home with your dad right now. How did I know I was sick? You mustn't worry. You need to get your head straight before you ask questions. Cindy, why don't you let me discharge you, and then we'll talk? I might have said something. You're worried. And the whole treatment's a bust. Cindy wanted to go home, but the doctors insisted. They didn't let her out until a week later. I had to do it a few times. The investigator asked questions, asked for details about Thomas. As Cindy told her story, it was as if she were living a part of her life all over again. Everything about their former life was clear and simple. After his death, the unpleasant mysteries began. What had Thomas done with his life? How had he disappeared? Workaholic, a little unlucky. The guy turned into a criminal, soulless, and calculating. Is it all about the money? No home, no family. But he's got his own grave and years in prison. Up ahead. When Jacob first brought Alex Volan to the hospital, she clung to him and sobbed so hard that Jacob threatened not to bring him back again. Alina still didn't know who had taken Alex and where he was. She was afraid to ask. She didn't know whether it was right to talk to him, to comfort him, or, on the contrary, not to hurt him. Perhaps I should consult with a child psychologist. Finally, Cindy was released home. The atmosphere there was Spartan. While Cindy was in the hospital, left, almost all the furniture was left, only the furniture that they decided not to take to New York. The dishes were hard to come by too, but it's okay. It's all about being close to Alex and Jacob, especially since we had a few days to live in this apartment. The factory was finished, and New York was in a hurry to move. Jacob, where are we going to live? At the train station. Where else do commuters live? I have an apartment in New York. I've never lived there. It's empty. They'll put the furniture up when we get there. but we'll have to get settled in. So you'll have plenty of time to get your strength back. So you're not going to help me? I won't. No, I won't. That's not why I got married. Jacob, you still haven't told me how you ended up on the farm. Well, it's not just my story. Let's have a little get-together tonight. Call Kelly and Andrew. Tell them to come over tonight, have something to eat. Not a problem. That's not the problem. I wish we had enough plates. We've had so many unpleasant events lately, we could use a little celebration. The horror of it will never be forgotten, but it's time to get back to normal. Cindy enthusiastically set about organizing the feast. She wanted to cook a lot and taste good. And the fact that there was almost no furniture and not enough dishes, so it's nothing. No one will be offended. Let her remember her student life. Cindy cooked for the evening. There was nowhere to put it for the wedding. Jacob walked around sighing. And that we'd eat it all with one bottle of champagne. You can't do that. I'm going for cognac. Bring the cake. Kelly's coming with a haircut, and she doesn't understand a party without cake. Kelly and Andrew brought 2 bags of goodies. Where to? We thought she'd be lying down. It's hard to cook, so we did our best. And this is so beautiful. Alex looked at Cindy apprehensively. They said he had a guest coming. He'll have to play with her. But he's an adult, he's 7 years old, and this is just a little thing. How do you play with her? Emily came over to Alex. There are toys. Show me. She took him by the hand and led him into the room. There was some strange tension at the table. Everyone pretended to eat with appetite. In fact, they were afraid to start a conversation. They felt sorry for Cindy, afraid to bring up the horror she'd been through. Well, it's not much of a party. Cindy, I waited and waited and I couldn't take it anymore. Why do you say something? Are you afraid of upsetting me? Why would I be upset? When I shot my ex-husband, I almost killed my current husband, almost lost my son. You, Kelly, you told me not to go anywhere. But I stupidly didn't listen, and I told Jacob not to say anything. You saved me, and now you're afraid to say a word to remind me what an idiot I am. Why don't you just tell me what happened? That day, Kelly ran after Jacob, but she never got to talk to him. It was after lunch when he finally came into the nurse's station. Kelly laid out to him all the strange conversations about seeing her late husband. Frank's suspicions that Thomas was alive and had become a mercenary. The story of the photo that was sent. Or did I try calling Cindy? It was no use. And then his phone rang. It was the director of the camp where Alex was. Jacob, we can't reach your wife. We're in trouble. Sasha's been taken away. The kids saw him being pushed into a car. We've already called the police. Kelly, do you know where the house from the picture is? In some farmhouse near the village. It's about 20 kilometers away. Jacob, wait, I'll come with you. But Jacob was already running to the car. Kelly didn't call the police. It would take a long time to explain. I called Frank. He knows best what to do. And I ran to Andrew. Went with the tape. Trouble even moved. And I'll explain on the way. Or was I driving like a madman? Reached the village. Where to next? The village is like extinct on the street. No one. He started breaking into all the houses in a row. Half the village was disturbed. They explained to him that the closest way to the farm was through the forest. He abandoned the car and ran. Turns out there was a detour to the farm. But Jacob didn't know that. And thank goodness, because the road came out in the morning not from the side of the forest, but from the other open side. Then Thomas would have seen him at once and would hardly have allowed him to approach. He saw the house, running toward it, but he did not see Cindy yet. He stopped, walked quietly along the house, heard voices, peered around the corner, realized that Cindy saw him, beckoned to her to move away, and threw himself on Thomas. Jacob's never been in a fight, not even as a kid. What was he counting on? Nothing. Just wanted Cindy to get away. Kelly and Andrew arrived almost at the same time as the extraction team. Frank called Adele Wolf right away, and Adele Wolf didn't have to explain who Thomas Scott was. Kelly and Andrew ran through the woods, and Adele Wolf and his men took a detour. An ambulance sped by. There had never been such a commotion in the village. What could be on an abandoned farm when so many people were rushed? The village men ran to the farm in case the special forces needed help. Well, if they can't do it without them, at least to see what happened there. So they did. Cindy wiped away her tears. She was so ashamed that she had put so many people in danger by her own stupidity. She wouldn't have hidden anything. She would have told. There wouldn't have been this horror. Kelly hugged Cindy, stroking her head, wiping away her tears. "What's wrong with you?" "It's okay now. It's not your fault." "What's your fault?" "That you married Thomas once? That's my fault too." I lived with introduced. "You married a good guy, honest and in love. Get up, come with me, boys. You two have a drink in the kitchen." Kelly begged Cindy like a child. Then she poured some strong tea and sat down beside her. "Cindy, it's all over. Everyone's alive. Even the one who doesn't deserve to live. You buried him once by burying him a second time. Only this time, forget him forever. He's gone. Look at Jacob, he has no face, he's so afraid for you. And for himself, of course. He can't imagine his life without you. He's dreamed of having a family. And you and your physicists are ruining it. I'll never forgive Jacob for life. You're in trouble, and you're acting out. Oh, my friend. I shouldn't have thought you were smarter than me. You dark fool. It's true that she's the one who's sorry. It's her own fault." Ruined everyone's evening. Cindy was shaken up, and suddenly she remembered that she was completely unaware of Kelly's new romance. And only, of course, the Andrew phenomenon is following her around. How does she do it? "Don't worry. I won't hurt Jacob. I love him. You better tell me." "You're too serious. What could I be serious about? He'll run away like all the others. Cupids don't fly over me. Tell me what's wrong with me." "Apart from that asshole Kevin, no one's ever wanted to marry me. I mean, I've never been alone. Ended up a single woman with a kid. I was inspired by your example. I think the new director's coming. I'm looking into it." "How'd you look?" "He came with his wife and 2 kids. No, I realize you stole the last decent guy, but I'd like a simpler one with Andrew." "Come on, it's not that bad for the boy. Why does he need a woman with a baby?" "No, he's good and he's walking around. But you do realize I'm like a passing fancy for him, don't you?" "No, I don't." "Did you ask him?" "What's there to ask? He's not the director, but he's the lead designer. Remember, you and I said that men in the factory are either under 30 or over 50. Andrew's the exception in the middle, so he's the hunted. Your office aisles don't allow it. Who am I? A nurse. Not even a college degree. Where's the competition?" Kelly was tearing up, sitting there with her nose in the air. So we switched places. Now Cindy washes and comforts. "No, it's weird that you took the swing at the principal. You should go ask the designer before the designer. It doesn't make any sense. Everything in life is complicated. Favorite husband, moving to New York, new apartment. I've got a lot on my mind. I can't let go of the past. It's so depressing. I want the sun to always shine, no matter if it's raining or snowing. The sun must shine in the soul. That's how it was until the past knocked. It came. Jacob wanted to tell me to stop sitting here. Time to go to the table. Saw everyone sobbing and quietly retreated. Let them cry. I was nervous. They just keep crying about their own things. But then a lovely vision of gold hair flew into the kitchen. Princess Emily, Alex, and I want cake. Now Cindy was cutting the cake. Cindy was dancing around the table. "Emily, do you dance?" "No. We only have boys dancing in the garden. I want to take judo." "Why?" "So no one will hurt me." "Does Alex go to the dance?" "No." "Okay." Emily took 2 plates of cake and left. Serious girl. Cindy and Kelly laughed. Good thing there are kids. A quick sob brought them to their senses. The misery was over. The rest of the evening was pleasant and quiet. Cindy changed her mind about questioning the designer. "Well, it's obvious he's crazy about Kelly. We need to set her straight so that she doesn't fool around, but grabs what comes her way. And let those college-educated people out there be jealous and weep. The factories are used to it. The director stole the designer from them. The children were tired, their eyes were glazed over, so they put them to bed. They sat up themselves. I didn't want to leave. What if it's the last time we sit like this? They'll leave. Or would I see Cindy? Kelly wondered what kind of job it was to be a board member. What would Cindy do? Jacob stated that Cindy would stay home and have babies. Cindy smiled and said nothing. She either agreed or disagreed. Jacob, we don't need designers in New York. Andrew, here you are the lead designer, and there you will be just a designer. Think about it. Yeah, you're the first guy on the block. I want to go to a big company. I want a challenging job. I'm tired of doing the same thing. And you realize I'm not going to answer you right now, but I know your level. I know you're good at what you do. I think I could use it in New York. Well, I don't work without politics. Don't get cocky. Kelly listened to the conversation, and the sadness set in again. Everyone in New York was pouring into us. Jacob cool, Cindy's manager, his wife Andrew is a specialist, and no one wants a talentless nurse. Well, screw you. I can live without you. Sometimes it's better to be alone. Less disappointment. Jacob, I've got a nerve, but please don't offer me options, just specific jobs. I can't risk it if I'm not sure. I'd rather stay here. Kelly's having a baby. We can't just take a chance. You've got a lot of nerve, but I like your attitude. Kelly, why aren't you saying anything? I think you just got proposed to and moved to New York. Kelly looked at one and the other with astonished eyes. She didn't say a word. What was it about her that made her so happy? But Kelly was clearly not thinking about the proposal. Too much anxiety in her eyes. Next was a scene in the best traditions of the dramatic theater. She stood up, clasped her hands, and, looking at one point, said with tragedy in her voice, "So I didn't divorce Alex. God, how could I forget? Andrew, I'll apply tomorrow. Yeah, you're funny. You forgot to get a divorce." Just Kelly. She could do that. Cindy woke up, and it felt warm. Or am I? She stroked his shoulder, hugged him. Now he didn't run out of the house at dawn and dusk. He went to the factory, but only for a few hours. The new director had already started work there, and Jacob was a consultant of sorts. It's a real family morning. You can lie around for a while, have a leisurely breakfast, escort your husband to work. It's a dream morning. Unbelievable happiness. And it will always be. Cindy would do anything to keep it that way. Alex suddenly announced that he too will go to the factory. May I, or didn't I object? He'll be in your way. Not at all. I don't need a helper. It'll be quicker with two of us. Alex was in the way at the door. Jacob kissed Cindy. Alex ran up and kissed her too. The men left and Cindy checked once more that everything was packed. She would be leaving tomorrow. She put the gifts for Emily and Kelly in a bag. Would go to say goodbye in the evening and drop them off. Right now, she wanted to go to her mom's apartment, pick up some old photos and walk around town. She needed to say goodbye to the city too. Go to her favorite places. Of course, she'll come here many times, but it's not known when, and she'll have to visit her mom's grave. It's not that long since she moved out of mom's apartment. It's already looking a little neglected. Everything's clean, everything's in place. But it's like no one lives in the apartment. Why does it feel like that? I don't know, but it makes you feel sad. Cindy sat looking at the photos, putting aside the ones she would take. Old photographs always gave Cindy a pinched feeling of loss. The image is there even the mood and feeling of remembering you can never go back to that place and time. The frozen past, the good past, school, institute, wedding little Alex. Such a past want to return, but evil will not bring. It's time to leave this place. It's getting dreary. Cindy put the photo in her bag. She checked again to make sure everything was in order. I'll be back and left the apartment. I walked leisurely down the street, looking at the old houses with monograms and arches. I thought how beautiful the city was. Well, now to the cemetery. Then I could walk around the city. There were fresh flowers on my mom's grave. Some of her friends must have come to visit. It's good that they visit. I'll feel less guilty. I stood there, said goodbye, and walked away. Her feet brought her to the grave. Thomas didn't even realize how she got here. I didn't mean to. It's a strange feeling to look at a photograph and know that the person is alive. Maybe I should have put the picture away. I wonder what last name should be written here. Nobody knows. Another person with no name. Cindy walked out of the cemetery, There was a gypsy woman standing at the gate. She was the one who talked about the past ahead and a man close to her. Cindy walked over. Or maybe she wasn't the one who just looked like her? Look, you don't remember me. You told me about the past. I don't talk about the past. You know all about it. Your past is not coming back. Did you have a lot of grief? Forget it. Don't disturb it again. You don't need to remember it. Go. Your past is not here. Do you want to know what lies ahead? No, I don't want to. Do you know that? Your heart knows. Trust it. And go on. I'm waiting for you. I never knew if it was the gypsy or not. Cindy's in a hurry to get home. Jacob and Alex would be here soon. She missed them. In the evening, the coworkers came. Alex rejoiced, Mommy, we went to Emily's and took the presents. Kelly went in the afternoon. Kevin, we have to get a divorce. And they have a child only through the court. Kevin became even more gloomy. He was still lying on the couch, cursing the world. Kelly thought she'd just left him lying there like that. The apartment was a mess, smelled of booze and dirt. It was clear. He had been drinking for a long time. I wonder who feeds him. When he heard about the divorce, he yelled, Who are you going to divorce? Chicken? I made a man out of you. Where would you be? Well, I'd probably be where I am now. I wish I had a little more nerve. You know, my nerves are shot. So don't get mad at me. I'll file for divorce myself. I'll let you know the court date. What trial? They can't just divorce us like that. What kid? What kid? Kelly didn't say anything else. She left. I couldn't bear to see that asshole. How did she marry him? Where were her eyes? Cindy thought. He doesn't remember he has a child, or he's got one, or something more serious. How ugly is he? Oh, the hell with it. I won't remember anymore. Emily and Alex were sorting out presents. Jacob and Andrew were talking on the balcony. Cindy looked at Kelly and thought, how am I going to be without her, without this crazy friend? I've never lived without her. Who's going to tell me about husbands and lovers? Who am I going to go to if I want to cry? Cindy, what are you doing? Kelly came over and hugged her friend. We're not breaking up forever. Kelly hadn't told the big news yet, but she didn't say anything, afraid of jinxing it. Andrew proposed, just like he should. Flowers, ring. She said I'd think about it, but she'd already made up her mind. You're the one who always said there's nothing to think about. You have to grab it. I remember she decided not to tell anyone about her failed romances until the wedding was decided. Andrew, of course, is a serious guy, but if he runs away, how will she explain? Where did the groom go? Don't say anything? No strength, but she'll be patient. We have to say goodbye. Cindy has tears in her eyes. She's getting sentimental. She's about to go with her beloved husband, and the girls are crying. Jacob came and hugged her friends. Are you tearing again? Are you in the habit? Now you what's Cindy? And you know that they are getting married where Andrew blabbed. Kelly put up with it, and he shot the whole thing. All right, that's fine. But we have to give him a stern warning to tell no one else. Kelly, congratulations. Why didn't you say anything? Cindy's making out with Kelly and Andrew. So if Lesha gets the job in New York, will you come to me? Oh my God, you guys are so great. And the partisan didn't say a word. What's to say? I still have to get a divorce. I haven't dealt with my past yet. Well, you have to say goodbye to the past in time. You can't go back to the past. Cindy knows that now. Hand. The gun sat down. Hooked. You hold your hand steady. Shot? No, it doesn't work. No matter how hard Thomas tried to pull the trigger, Cindy couldn't. She dreaded the thought of the bullet flying out of the barrel. She'd see it flying, tearing the target to shreds. Clearly, this shooting gallery had not injured anyone, but Cindy could not shoot. Thomas, a candidate master of sports in bench rest shooting, did not understand how one could be so afraid of the sound of a shot. It was impossible to see a bullet flying. It was useless. Cindy couldn't bring herself to pull the trigger and was angry at her husband for the idiotic idea of teaching her. She's a designer in a furniture factory, an office mouse. Why would she want to do that? Thomas couldn't answer that. Just thought he might have to. What doesn't happen in life? Attempts to drag his wife to shooting galleries sometimes succeeded, but Thomas could never get her to shoot. So today, after much persuasion, she came. And then stupor, panic, and then fainted. That's never happened before. Cindy fainting wasn't exactly frightening, more of a surprise. There was no tendency to faint at nothing. Constant arguments with Thomas over his obsession with teaching her to shoot could not be considered a provoking factor. Yeah, she couldn't shoot. I was scared, but I'd never fainted before. There was another scandal at home because of the fainting. Cindy Wendy's mother accused her son-in-law that he and his donkey stubbornness brought her daughter to a nervous breakdown. He thinks he's an athlete. You'd better think about feeding your family. Your sports club is dying. No salary for the second month. How long can we feed you? How did you get into this mess? Talented sports star, the gym teacher has brought his wife to the field by tomorrow. Stop by the nurse's station. Kelly will give you a clue. Thomas insisted we should see a doctor. Cindy assured that with every nonsense on hospitals, Nina run all. After arriving at work, Cindy went to the nurse's station with Nurse Kelly. They had been friends since childhood, since high school. Doing homework together in the summer, avoided going to the river in the winter, spent all day skiing in the woods. Falling in love together and crying over unrequited love together. Even Thomas Cindy was introduced to Kelly. One day, another suitor invited Kelly to a club. But here's the thing. Thomas' friend came from training camp and asked me to go with him. I didn't feel comfortable saying no. Why don't you bring your girlfriend? Well, Thomas, isn't that a shame? Kelly started calling Cindy. Phone's disconnected. Maybe she's in class. But Cindy didn't answer after an hour or two. What's it like when you need someone in a hurry? Can't find her. I'm sure she forgot to charge her phone or even left it somewhere. Kelly rushed Cindy home. Wendy was home alone. What are you doing here? Did Cindy happen to show up already? Wait, no. I've got a lot of things to do. I'll leave her a note. Just don't forget and tell her I'm expecting her at the club. Cindy wrote, "Come to Kalina. There will be an extra date." Kelly's handwriting was illegible, and Cindy read bald. The bow outside the club stood Kelly with two young men. Which of them Kelly, understandably, was immediately too hostile. She held him under her arm. The other was a tall, thin, good-looking, but not at all bald guy. Sitting at a table, Cindy waited for the one Kelly wanted her to meet to arrive. She leaned over to Kelly and whispered, "Where's the bald guy?" "What bald guy?" Kelly's eyes popped out. "Well, you wrote bald guy, and I wrote extra. He's sitting there staring at you." God, it's embarrassing because the guy came over to meet her. And she's been there all night, waiting for him. Kelly and her boyfriends didn't work out. And Cindy and Thomas had an affair. Now Cindy goes to her old girlfriend's house and complains to Kelly. "It's weirdly dizzy, and my brother's never been dizzy before." I'll tell you what, girlfriend. Every woman is when she's not. Happens the first time.